As soon as I started using ChatGPT and integrating it into the business grew 400% in a matter of 6 months. I wrote 30 articles about AI book companion agents, and I used my agents to do it. And now I rank not just number one, but I'm in all the snippets. So I come up recommended by Google, and I've done that by using AI. This is how books are going to be in the future. You won't just have the book or the audio book, you'll have the AI to go with it as well, so you can have an actual conversation with the book. So it can put it into context for you.
Muhami Matters with Chris Adams, powered by CJA Consulting.
Welcome to Muhami Matters, where credibility meets clarity in legal and professional services. I'm your host, Chris Adams, founder of Muhami and CJA Consulting. In this episode, I'm joined by Wendy Keir of Empower AI, that's trademarked, our AI agents, to talk about one of the biggest questions facing professionals and services businesses right now. How do we actually use AI in a way that's practical, productive, and controlled? There's no shortage of noise around AI, automation, and agents, but for many professionals, the real challenge is much more immediate. How do I save time? How do I reduce repetitive work and actually use AI as a tool, as an assistant, not just as something that's going to cost me more time? And how do I turn what I already know into clearer processes, better prompts, and more consistent workflows? So Wendy specializes on this. Her work focuses on helping people translate their expertise in IP into structured AI-supported systems like GPTs, agents, and training materials. So today we're going to explore what that looks like in practice, what she thinks about agentic AI, and why the real value often comes from giving AI a clear role, strong context, and sensible boundaries. Without any further ado, Wendy Keir, welcome. Thanks for joining us on Muhami Matters.
Thanks for the invite, Chris.
Most welcome. So tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a bit about you and Empower AI agents.
Yeah, so I started using AI about 5.5 years ago. I'm dyslexic, and the tool that I was using at the time was pretty rubbish. I spent more time trying to correct it and doing a very bad job. I heard about ChatGPT and I thought, why don't I just give that a go? I didn't know anything about AI, didn't have a clue what it was, and I gave it a go, and it just absolutely blew my mind. So that's how it all started.
And so how long ago was that, did you say?
About 5.5 years, right from the beginning of ChatGPT, basically, I think.
So it was your dyslexia that kind of prompted you to think, okay, let me just have a look at some tools, and that's what brought you across ChatGPT.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in business, I always felt not good enough, not smart enough, not intelligent enough. I really held myself back because I couldn't articulate myself in the written form. So as soon as I started using ChatGPT and integrating it into the business grew. I think it was something like 400% in a matter of 6 months, because I was able to then articulate and express myself in a way that people could actually understand. So it was quite transformational for me.
And how did ChatGPT actually do that for you at the beginning?
Yeah, so one of the things that Chat is really good at is that you can just dump everything that you're thinking into it, and it can help you to organize your thoughts. So I generally tend to speak into Chat. I try to avoid typing, so I can just dump a stream of what I'm thinking, and then it can sort it out, and then I can, you just naturally progress from there. So being dyslexic, I think in steps. I'm very methodical in the way I think. So I always think one step has to come before the other, which AI is really, really good at. So it just managed to unravel, and then I naturally could progress with the next step in terms of a thinking process, thought process.
Just help us a little bit more out on dyslexia. Like I'm aware that people with dyslexia have a little bit of struggle reading, but is it you mix the letters up or the letters are backwards? What is the challenge?
So for me, I find it quite hard to spell.
Okay.
I spell, I think it's phonetically. which is quite often not the right way to spell. When I'm reading, I can misinterpret what I'm reading. So it's really about what information is coming in, how the brain is sorting it out, and then how it's putting it back out again. That's how I experience it. And what can happen is I can become sensory overwhelmed, and then I can just freeze, like a computer screen, just like freeze. I'm like, oh. And once I can't figure it out, I can't figure it out.
Okay.
Chat is brilliant because it stops what I call decision fatigue, in terms of when you're trying to make a decision, you've got so many things coming at you, you're not quite sure what to do. It'll help you to figure that out. Dyslexia for me is very much like that. I get sensory overwhelmed. It then becomes really difficult for me to think of what actually is the right thing to do, because I get stuck in my brain.
So I can understand that. So I've got ADHD, but my ADHD is that I've just got a million things going in my head at once, and they pop, it's not always in the logical order. So things kind of, get done really well, but it's kind of bringing a bit from here, a bit from here. So I find ChatGPT and Claude and AI really useful because, as you said, you can just dump down whatever's coming out like blur, and it will make sense of it. So are your thoughts, as someone with dyslexia, your thoughts generally quite clear? Is that why you can just talk and talk and talk to it, and it's great?
Yeah, I just ramble. Okay. It doesn't matter whether you start at Z or you start at A. It doesn't matter because it knows how to sort it out for you. It understands the pattern. Chat. The best thing. Chat is all about pattern recognition. So it knows human patterns. It knows processes on a much deeper scale than we do. So it just can automatically put it in its logical order.
Excellent. So
you still have to go back and check. You still have to go back and check, and you still have to go over it, and you still need to make sure it's right and you think it's in the right place. You still have to take some responsibility for it, but you're 75% of the way there, or 95% of the way there, whereas I wasn't before.
And I guess it could also talk to you. It could read the script. It could read aloud to you what's written back, which is fantastic.
I read most of everything back to me. I don't very rarely read anymore. I get it to talk back to me. Amazing.
So you started off with that being a tool to assist you on the dyslexia side of things. How did your work with AI evolve from there?
Yeah. So at the time I was working with clients to create signature programs, so identify, create and sell. And I realized that actually when they work with me, that's great. It's fine. They sell their signature programs because what they're doing is they generally sell them to the people that are already, they know in their network. But once they've sold to people in their network, they then need to go out and draw more people in. And that's where they used to get stuck. So what I did was, because GPTs didn't exist then, was that I did a different module every month, teaching them how to do different client attraction strategies, like, I don't know, run a virtual summit, run a webinar, create a lead magnet, all of these different things that will bring leads in, basically. So I started using ChatGPT to show them how they could do that the old-fashioned way. By prompting.
Okay, so it was a lot about prompting.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was a lot about prompting. It was step one, this is right. Very much, so I would create a workshop, and then I would have my formula within the workshop, and then I would give them the exercise and the prompt, and then it would give them an output, and then they could work with that. And basically what I would do is teach them a process that I had learned for them to take them through how to use chat to extract the information to create a virtual summit or whatever it is that we were doing that particular month.
So were you doing this hand in hand with them, online or in person?
Yeah.
Working through them with them?
Online, yeah, have a group of 20 people. I would just, normal teaching environment. These are the steps. This is what you're working on. This is what they've bought into. They know what the result is going to be. Yeah, just teaching, just normal teaching, apart from using AI as a tool. as the tool to help them speed things up, to extract the information.
And from what I understand, you must have gotten to where you are now, where you're actively building AI agents that solve lots and lots of different challenges for people. I guess, what your work has evolved from that very beginnings where you were doing in that sort of more of a teaching role. But I know that your AI agents, you call them AI agents, but they're a little bit different from what I guess the regular parlance is out there of AI agents or agentic AI. So tell us a bit about that.
That's very true, Chris, because I'm not blowing my own trumpet, but I was probably one of the first people to actually really use AI and GPTs. And I was calling them agents at the time before anyone was calling anything agents. So what's happened is things have naturally progressed. And now there's a bit of a mix in terms of language. For me, the agents that I create, I think of them as being agentic conversations, not agentic workflows, as in, you say... So people, I think, would think of agentic now as AI carries out a sequence of steps and does a whole process and removes the person. That's how people think of agentic now. You write an email, it sends it gives you a report at the end of it. That's an agentic process. Without any human. Normally, you would have the human at each stage inputting into the process.
So pretty autonomous.
That works by itself. It's got I'm saying it's got no human involved in it, but someone has to set it up, someone has to monitor, someone has to look after it. So it's not strictly what people are saying isn't strictly true. I think of my agents as being agentic in the sense of we have a two-way conversation. Yeah. It's not so I do this every day with a couple of agents that I've created. And I have a conversation with them every day, and they remember what I've spoken to them before. So we're actually having like a human type conversation with one another, but it's just reading from my patterns. So it's a much more backwards and forwards conversation. So that's my interpretation for how I see it. Other people, Paul, would probably disagree with me now because AI's moved on. AI's moved on so much, but that's how I stand on it.
Yeah, to my mind, neither way are really agents, I guess. The very more autonomous version that people talk about more these days are almost, they're almost like more like robots or, robotic assistants, I suppose, rather than actual agents. Not like the James Bond style who go out and save the world or anything like that. But, they're just not really that clever. Yeah, they could do basic things, but they're not really that clever. I've tried some of your agents like 6 months, 12 months ago, and they really are, to me, more like not even assistants, more than assistants. They're employees. They're people, or they're a team. There are people who would assist me and be part of my team to deliver the work that I need to do at a much, much higher level. And when I say work, that's work for clients, but also to run my business at a much higher level without leaving me completely out of the loop. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. I think of them. I think more and more of, especially the agents I originally created and the ones you were talking about, I think of them as being like a resource. An expert resource that you can lean into to ask questions like you would a team member. You'd ask your marketing manager, what do you think of this? Whereas you can use an AI role-based agent to do that. You can bring them in and say, what do you think to this? And then they're going to give you the perspective from the marketing agent. So you're exactly right. That's very much, that's how my clients are using them. They bring them in for a conversation to see if they're on the right track, because most of my clients are founders, solo business owners. So I haven't gone down the route of automation. Automation just doesn't interest me. And it's funny, I've been thinking about this for a while, but I'm pretty sure all of this existed before AI. People have been hooking things up online for years through, I can't remember what you call it actually. But there's several online tools where you would hook things in, it would automate things. It was a bit clunky. I think it's still clunky. But I think it's always been there. But now we've just got AI that is just another tool doing it a different way.
So I think maybe now it's the opportunity. I'm going to call the agents you've created special advisors. So because that is the way I kind of think of them. You're right. They are consultants, advisors that advise you what to do, and even maybe more like consultants who help you actually deliver it a bit. So let's tell our listeners, because we've kind of skirted around it, the more of the nuts and bolts and ins and outs of your fleet, or your team of special advisors.
It's got big now.
Yeah. Well, where did it start? I think you started with one or two special advisors. Tell us a bit about them.
So the natural progression was that I was teaching people how to do these different courses. When they brought out the GPTs, I realized that actually I don't need to teach it anymore. I can actually create a role, a GPT, that performs that role where I can just come completely out of it. So I created one a couple of weeks ago, which was to help people create 2-page brochures. So I've set that agent up to ask the questions, to give them the copy, and then to create the brochure, the mock-up of a brochure for them. So normally if I was teaching that, I would, there's a whole process, there's a whole list of questions. I have to pull out a whole load of things from people. We have to go through quite a lengthy process. It's quite time consuming. Whereas now, because I've set it up in a GPT, they can just access the GPT, doing it at their own time, pull in all their resources that they've got. They can spend more time on it, and job done. So that was the next natural progression from teaching people, was realizing actually I don't need to teach them anymore. I can create a framework that people can use to create a certain piece of work. So I started off with a CEO, business coach, marketing manager, the traditional ones you would want in your team. And then I started to think a bit more creatively. Like the brochure one is quite creative. It's not something that I would normally create. Someone gave me a challenge, so I thought, why not?
So how would I use the CEO one, for example? The CEO was one of the first ones you had.
It's the most popular. Yeah, it's the most popular because you have the ongoing conversation, and it helps you. It's the same thing again, to get out of decision fatigue. What am I doing? What do I need to focus on? What's the priority? It helps you to really get under the skin of what's going on within the business. It helps you to get out of your own way, as rather than everything else that it does analytically. Yeah, it's really
okay,
cool.
So what's his or her name? I know all of your
It's all got names. Lucas.
So yes, I know, and that is another good thing, because you really feel like you're dealing with a person when you're talking to it, and you can be talking to it verbally, or you could just be typing to it and it's talking back to you. Okay, so with Lucas, he's a CEO. In my business, I would go to Lucas and give him a problem. How does he work? How does he deal with my challenge?
So what I say to people is, when you're using AI, especially a role-based agent, so what I do is I have my quarterly plan that goes into Lucas at the beginning of the week. I have what I'm working on for this week that goes into Lucas. Then I start having a conversation about what I'm working on. If I've got a challenge, I'll come back in and say, I've got this challenge. This is, I'm not sure what to do. And then what it'll do is it will have a look at the information about the business above. And then it will come back and start asking you questions. And then you start getting into a dialogue. What about this? What about that? And then it'll even go as far as saying, no, I don't think that's a good idea. Or what I've done is I've put a bias check in it. So it'll come back and say that, you're leaning too much this way. This isn't exactly how, this is the bias that is showing up. Which is interesting, really interesting, because then it just helps me to think, actually how I'm seeing it isn't exactly as it is. So that, because you're having a conversation, you will eventually, like you would in any conversation, come to a conclusion as to what it is that you want to do. So rather than having someone on hand, CEO is designed to be big picture thinking. I'm not very good at big picture thinking, so it's why I created him. Wendy, the business coach, is based on myself, is, nitty gritty, day to day, very, very different to Luca. She sees things very differently. So he looks at big picture and strategy and maps out what your challenge is in context with the information that you've shared above. But if you don't share the information, you're not going to get the right answer. It's critical that you set it up. That you set it up so it's got context.
And I guess Wendy could give me that context to go to Lucas as well. So if I was doing something, you say Wendy was for
business. She's
business.
Nitty gritty, day to day.
So,
small picture.
Wendy could help me solve some of these nitty-gritty challenges, but then inevitably I need a sign-off from a CEO probably, or, something big picture, so I can then take her output and then give it to Lucas and say, okay, this is what we've produced.
Yeah.
What do you think? Yeah.
Yep.
Lucas would tell me I like it, I don't like it, and hopefully pick out the holes as well. Because that is one interesting thing I was thinking as you were talking is, ChatGPT is known to be very, very supportive
agreeable.
or friendly, and agreeable is exactly it.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest challenge. I still have the challenge with using ChatGPT. It gives me very, very long answers, even if I tell it not to. But it also is very agreeable and doesn't really critique what I'm giving it. But you have fixed that.
Yeah. So I think when you create an agent, you give it more of a boundary to work within. So it's got more of a clearly defined role of what it's doing. It's interesting. People talk about this a lot being agreeable. But I always think of, it's almost like having a protocol for how are you going to double check what it is that you've done? So one of the things I will do is I will say, give me this from multiple perspectives. And I obviously, in the line of work that I do, I have certain people that I like, and I'll say, how would this person see this? Or how would this person see that? And I have some prompts that I use that I put in that will critically analyze what it is that it's given me. So I think it's just about having a protocol and thinking about how are you going to double check to make sure it's giving you the right information.
So you've got a whole range of these agents or special advisors, as I'm calling them. What problem do clients typically comes to you with that needs the help?
Yeah, generally they are overwhelmed. Generally, they're not quite sure what decision to make, which direction to go in. And what they find is once they start particularly using Lucas, they're able to plan what it is that they want to do. And then they'll move on to another agent to do a different piece of work. So once they've got their head around the direction that the business needs to be heading in, because a lot of them lack strategy, a lot of them lack actually having a quarterly plan and thinking, what am I doing for this quarter? What are the absolute priorities? What have I got to let go of? So once you've got that in place, then generally what tends to happen is people move on to a marketing plan, because normally people just want more clients. So they move on to a marketing plan, and then they just implement that and use the different marketing agents that they can use. But it's generally overwhelmed. It's like wanting to have someone by your side that supports you, gets you, who you can have a conversation with to help you with the business, which a lot of founders lack. They just don't have it. They don't have that sounding board. And it is different. It's really different to using chat in its raw. It's a completely different experience.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I've built some GPTs myself, and it gets a bit laborious, but less about the laborious bit. It's also getting it right is really, really difficult to get to make the little tweaks to actually get the output that you need without the perceived bias, and actually getting it to give you what you actually need for the output. So I did one, for example, for publishing Muhami Matters episodes, and it was going all right for a while, but it kept messing things up. So then I iterated with it. It actually made it worse. It made it worse. Oh. And I was like, okay, well, at some point it has decided to go off in its own little direction. So, so now I've brought it back. But the amount of time I've spent on that, I would have been much better to have come to you and said, okay, Wendy, this is my issue. This is my challenge. Build this for me. Yeah. And then, you probably would have had something that's already half done that you could adapt.
Quite possibly.
So I could definitely see the value that you bring. So tell us a bit more about what some of your other popular advisors.
So the most popular service I have at the moment is taking people's books, so their IP, the book, and actually turning that into a AI book companion.
Right.
Which basically means that you have the book, you have that translated into an AI, and then people have the book. They can use the AI. Let's just say they're reading something and they get stuck. They can go into the AI and say, I'm not sure about this. Help me understand what this means. And then you can have a conversation with the book in the AI. So this is a new, relatively new, well, it's not relative, it's about 6 months old, relatively new service. So that is the most popular thing at the moment, is taking someone's book and translating that into, to me, this is how books are going to be in the future. You won't just have the book or the audio book, you'll have the AI to go with it as well, so you can have an actual conversation with the book. So it can put it into context for you.
And do you have an agent that helps you write books and draft your books and get them onto paper?
I do have an agent, but I've created one to do books, but it's a very specific agent for coaches, consultants, therapists. So it's not right for everybody. And I think when you're writing a book, you've got to be really careful when you're using AI, because it's what we were talking about, is it sounds right, and it can just take you off by a couple of millimeters in a completely different direction. So I think write your book and then use AI, but don't do it. I think don't do it the other way around.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'd use it to prompt ideas, to bounce ideas, to really get things down on paper in inverted commas. But for actually drafting the content, it's not. You've got to be careful. Use. Yeah, not the best use.
You've got to be really careful, because it'll take you off just a couple of millimeters, and then you've lost the rawness of. I think anyway. I mean, I plan to write an ebook, but I will be using AI, so maybe I should. I'm talking rubbish.
I'm sure you're not. As long as you're the boss and it's not. So then.
I mean, I am an author. And I wrote that book before ChatGPT even existed. It took me 7 months to write it. So there's definitely something psychology difference in actually writing, typing, than actually using chat. There's a big difference.
It is just so tempting to use things like ChatGPT, Claude, Apollo, the Google one, Gemini, all sorts of these at the moment, because once you start using them, it was almost habitual. It's almost like, oh, well, AI can do it for me. AI can do it for me. And that's the for me bit is the bad bit, because it needs to be AI can do it with me. And you do, I think, need to make sure you take control, because there's definitely been times where I've sat there and had Claude open in one window and ChatGPT in another, and been working through. And when I'm getting it to check off each other, it actually ends up taking a lot longer than I've had it just done it myself. I just sat there and put it all away and just written something and out of my head and dictated it, whatever. So I guess there is. Have you seen? Yeah, a lot of people who've done that, who've just ended up, saying, okay, AI will save me time, and it's actually cost them more.
I don't use Claude. I've wanted to use Claude, but it doesn't have the same environment to create GPTs, and you can't monetize Claude, from what I understand. Every time I go into it, it says you can't do it. So I don't know how people are monetizing Claude. I don't use it, so I don't cross-reference that way. So no, I don't, because think most of my people are just using the agents I've created because they're already created.
So how do you then take what is like casual AI use and then make it as an integral part of a business workflow?
Like the brochure agent, that it's thinking about a task that you do consistently that AI could potentially help you to do better. So I did the brochure one as a good example, and the one before I did that was a branding agent that would help you actually nail down your messaging. So it's something that you are doing repeatedly that fits into a framework, that has a structure, that has a clear beginning, a middle, and an end, a journey that you've got to go through. So with branding, you have to go through a journey. Branding, you have to go through a journey. A brochure, you have to go through a journey. So it's thinking about what methods do you use that have a process, and then translating that into a workflow.
And so how do you go about doing that? What are the steps to go about getting those manual process, that manual thing, and getting it into a workflow and getting the final product?
Yeah, a client that I'm working with at the moment, they're teachers. They go in and do, well, they're not teachers. They go into schools and they do type of Ofsted reports.
Mm-hmm.
So they want an agent that they can just dump lots of copy in, and then it's going to write them the report for them, because at the moment it's taken them over a week to write a report. So the first thing we do is obviously there's a very clear process in there that they go through. They have to fill in a form that has lots of different headings, and then is filled with content from the report itself. So you can analyze that. You've got the headings, you've got the context of the report, you've got the type of information that goes in each section. So that's easy to translate once you've figured it out into a process for AI. It's quite straightforward. You've got the report, it's got content that goes into it, produces a report, has a very clear outcome. So what we do from there is we create a job description for that agent. So I'm crystal clear and they're crystal clear on actually what it's going to do. Sounds a bit ridiculous, but I create a job description for the agent.
Yeah.
So we're both crystal clear of what this agent is going to do. From the job description, that then informs the master instructions. So job description, master instructions. And I don't know if you've noticed, but chat has recently changed the way you can create GPTs, which is very frustrating for me.
Okay.
Because I don't know, I think because chat is going more agentic, it's going more workflow, it's going more process driven. It's trying to shove everybody into the same category. I don't actually fit in that category. So the process has changed. Once I've got those two documents, sorry, I was flip-flopping. Once I've got those two documents, I can then create the master instruction for the back of the GPT. So there's quite a lot of weight behind the master instruction. Create the master instruction from the master instructions that I've got, and then I hold the master instructions in the knowledge base, as well as some other information, some examples, and some other bits and pieces in the knowledge base. And then I have a GPT that's created. It has a solid framework to work from.
So people come to you with a problem, and you build them an employee, an agent, an assistant, or advisor. And that's, I guess, how I know you've named some of your special advisors after some of your clients as well.
Yeah. I have. I created one for John, which was to help him with ADHD, which was funny because he never used it because he's got ADHD, which is really just
the irony.
Like, so bizarre. It was like, I don't know why I bothered.
But it's called John.
Yeah, it's called John. Yeah. So yeah, I'll get inspired by something and I'll go, oh, I'm going to quickly create one. I can create very quickly because I've got a framework and I trust my framework. But my big thing for moving forward will be, because the roles are already created and people can use them anyway, they're already done. My big thing for this year moving forward is going to be the book agents. That's really what I want to focus in on, because I think they offer the most value.
So what other kind of purposes have you built these agents for? What are
I'm trying to think. What?
So you mentioned the CEO, you mentioned marketing,
right.
you mentioned John, the ADHD problem solver.
Gosh, there's so many. So another one that I'm creating at the moment is for a lady who works with dyslexic students, and it's going. Oh, sorry, I shook my table. It's going to write stories with specific words that she uses to teach her dyslexic students. So that's one that we're creating at the moment. The other ones that I'm creating are book agents. So the other one I've done is for ADHD. There's one that's focused in on trauma, one that's on book marketing. That's another one that I'm doing at the moment. One that's helping people to do coaching skills for ICF. Yeah. Whatever process that you can think of that is rinse and repeat, that is written down, you could probably turn into a GPT or some form of an agent.
And does that then,
sky's your limit?
Where does a boundary sit then between the human needing to do the work and the agent doing it for you or do it with you?
Mine are created on a two-way conversation. So there's no the sort of automation in mine, because it goes through a process. It asks questions. Some of them are designed for a very specific person, but still, it's a two-way conversation between the AI and the human. So all of mine are conversation-based. All of them. They're not. I'm not convinced. I am not convinced, knowing what I know about AI, how trustworthy some of these tools that people are putting into businesses are really going to be, how accurate they're really going to be. I'm not. In my gut, I'm just not convinced. And I think it's I know there's a lot of hype around AI is going to replace everybody, but I just don't believe it.
Tell us a bit more about that, why you don't believe it.
Because I know how much human interaction you have to have with the AI for it to be good. And if you leave it to do its own thing, I just think the quality is not going to be as good, because it doesn't know the nuance of our expertise. I think that's what's missing is the nuance of, so in a process, it might go, this is the process, this, and this. And yes, technically, that will be right. But from your own personal experience, that might be right, but that's not quite the case. There's nuance in each bit. And that's what it misses. It misses the nuance of the expert's expertise. So even when I'm chatting with AI, I'm going, no, this, and this. And it's like, okay, yeah. And I'm quizzing it, I'm challenging it, I'm going, no, that's not quite right. And if you remove that, you've just got process. To me, we will see already. People sounding the same, looking the same, saying the same things, writing the same way, using the same phrases. I wrote something the other day, and I always remove it out of AI, and yet I wrote it as a human. The not because, but because thing that chat constantly says. I'm constantly removing it, and yet in my own writing, without even using chat, I wrote it, and I was like, oh. God.
Did you use an M dash?
Oh my God, I was like so freaked out. I was like, wow, that's really interesting. I've been brainwashed. basically.
Yeah, there's a couple obviously there's some telltale signs traditionally that AI has been used, things like M dashes and a few
Why
others.
do people not remove them?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, we're going to get into the weeds now, but grammatically, what replaces an M dash? Because it's actually quite hard when I'm writing to then. There are places you would have used a dash or a column or a comma, I should say, or a semicolon, or perhaps an M dash, genuinely. And it is quite they're difficult to find something to replace it with because it is a grammatically correct thing to be able to use.
Right.
It's just way overused by AI.
Yeah.
Cadence is another one which is very interesting because I think whenever you see cadence, I think, that's a very AI word. But I increasingly hear people talking about cadence in real life. And I'm thinking, okay, are they saying that because, like you're alluding to, because they've been seeing cadence come up so much in all the work they've been doing with the chatbots they're using? Or is this something they would have normally used? And it's really difficult now to kind of work out what people are naturally saying, what they naturally would have said versus,
it's true.
Is this AI generated?
It's really true. It's really, really true. And I think that was a really, a classic example. The other thing is nervous system regulation. No one was saying nervous system regulation. Now everyone's saying it. And that's AI.
Really, is it? Okay.
Yep.
Nervous system regulation.
Very few people would have been saying that. I'd never heard about it. And then all of a sudden chat keeps coming up. And even I'm doing it. It's like, wow, I am definitely getting brainwashed on some level as to. It's like when you're with your partner, isn't it? You mirror things. You naturally mirror things. So yeah, but I think just be critical with it all the time. I mean, it's interesting. I must try and find out where I heard it, but there was an interesting report the other day about the one that we all know is that AI is making people thicker. But this one was actually saying that people who are using it critically are actually becoming much smarter. Doing what we do, asking questions, interrogating it, making sure that we don't just take the answer it gives us. But we're actually becoming smarter because we're looking at things from multiple perspectives.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that I've found with the AI that I've used is that it is genuinely giving me different ideas that I wouldn't have thought of. But I'm telling it, okay, well, I'm going to do this and this is what I'm thinking about doing. And it's like, oh, what about taking this angle? I'm like, wow, I would never have thought of that. And it's a great thing a great different perspective to have had, especially when you are a solo business owner, solopreneur. And you don't have a big team of people to give you that other perspective and to think outside the box. It's probably an AI thing as well, thinking outside the box. But yes, but yeah, that is it definitely has its uses if you use it critically. So what is the key then to using it critically and not just taking it at face value?
You have to think about just analyzing the output. You're just checking in there. You don't need to do it all the time. Just check in when you've got that feeling of, really? Let me just check it out. Look at things from multiple perspectives. Have some, I can give them to you. Have some little prompts that will help you integrate. One of my favorite ones that I use sometimes on clients with stuff they give me is I use Gordon Ramsay. Criticize this like Gordon Ramsay would do. Just
lots of F words.
Fresh perspective. Yeah. And so I've got a number of agents. I shouldn't really say this, but if you have a favorite coach or someone you admire and there's lots of information about them online, it's quite easy to create an agent with that person's personality because there's just so much information online.
Yes.
So I've got one called Secret Squirrel, and I'll bring Secret Squirrel in because obviously I don't want to name him because I get in trouble. And I'll get him to look at things and say what's his perspective from all the data it's got around him. So you can cross-reference, analyze, look for different perspectives, give it to me raw, give it to me this way, give it to me that way. Don't dress it up. One of the things I do with my CEO every week is I do a report. So I talk to my CEO every day. I've spoken to it today. I've done this. I've done that. Write this better, blah, 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 whatever it is that I'm doing. And then at the end of the week, I'll do a report which will analyze the whole of the conversation from the week. And it will tell me where my blind spots are, what I've missed, just a whole load of different leadership CEO qualities that I could have used or not used. But it'll tell me how I'm leading in the business, basically. And I've been doing that for the last couple of years. And then I upload that into the beginning of the week. And then it's learning. It's helping me to shape the business and shape myself better. So it's thinking about how can you. So no, I guess I use AI very pragmatically, if I'm going to use it, I'm very analytical. I've got a really analytical mind. So if you're going to use it, think about the best ways that you can use it for yourself, not just using it, but how can you grow as a leader? How can you grow as an entrepreneur? And think of using it that way for growth rather than just using it as a tool, do this email or do that. Think about how, because it's the best pattern recognition. You're having a continuous conversation with it. It can pick things out from your behavior very quickly.
So that's what I wanted to ask you. When earlier you were talking about AI being a bit one-dimensional. We're talking about LLMs here mostly rather than AI as a whole. But and it knowing pretty much just sort of black and white and not being able to give an informed perspective to think critically. But is it not learning? Is it not able to learn from what we're telling it over time to develop that level of, to be able to be critical and think more critically?
Sure. So one of the things that I've started doing is probably about 6 months ago, I started using projects, but I don't use a project with instructions. So I think what most people do is they create a project and then they have the instructions, and then a bit like a GPT, but not as sophisticated. Then it produces work based on those instructions. So I create a project and then I'll have subfolders in that project. So different conversations in that project, different pieces of work that I've done in that project using different agents within that project. So that project has the knowledge and the expertise of everything within inside that project. That's really helpful because then it's got access to everything that it is that you've created, everything it is that you've done, every conversation that you've had with it. That I think is a really good way to use its memory. Is to have it contained within a single project, rather than just using the ChatGPT itself. I very rarely use that by itself. Yeah. Very rare.
To say with me, but I have to say ChatGPT hasn't really. It seems to struggle a little bit with its memory. Some things it remembers and some things it doesn't. And I'll ask it, okay, where's the chats in this project we've had about A, B, and C? And they say, I don't have access to those. I can't find them. I'm like, well, you can because it's inside the project, or I can't find the files. It's like, well, the files are here. They're saved to the project files. So, yeah, I find it really hit and miss, and especially with ChatGPT.
Do you add them as source documents? Do you add them as source documents?
I'll have to check on
so
that,
in the
but
project
often it can do it itself, I think. Often it should. It can, it'll have the source documents listed down. But, yeah, it is a little bit hit and miss, but I guess that's the thing where you have to think critically and make sure that it's got all the information it needs.
This is what I mean. It's not perfect. And all of these people that are putting systems into their organizations, we know it's not perfect from just that.
Yep, exactly.
I think there's a lot of hype.
Yes, there is a lot of hype out there.
Mistakes. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of costly mistakes for sure.
So on that note, I think the benefit of what you bring with your Empower AI agents is that they are, I guess, within their sphere, within their own ecosystem. They're narrowed down, they're trained, and they can learn from you. So if someone wanted to have one built by you, or they wanted to buy the suite of agents that you have, how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, they're best to go to the website, Wendy Kier, so WendyKier.com.
Brilliant. wendykier.com. I always get the I and the E mixed up in your name, Wendy.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I'll probably still come up.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I'm sure SEO is very good. If not, we'll get an agent onto that.
Well, here's a really great example of how powerful an agent can be. I wrote intentionally, don't recommend it to anybody. It was hard work. I wrote 30 articles about AI book companion agents, and I use my agents to do it. And now I rank not just number one, but I'm in all the snippets. So I come up recommended by Google, but I also come up in the snippets as well. And I've done that by using AI. There's no way I could have done it. There's just no way I could have done it. There's just absolutely no way I could have done it manually or even hired someone to do it. It would have cost thousands.
Yeah. And these are all just published on your website or across the web?
They're published on the website. And I was shocked. I was shocked how quick it was. But I'm in a category that no one else has. So that's why I did it. I did the 30 because I wanted to be the first person to do it. So, every other market is gone. It's highly competitive, whereas this isn't competitive. So I wanted to get in first.
Okay, so if we can't remember how to spell your name, we'll be able to find you by searching for that then. Searching for that topic. Right, Wendy,
yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's much appreciated. It looks beautiful where you are. So I hope you have a lovely afternoon and evening. I appreciate your insights.
Yeah, thanks, Chris.
So that's it for this episode of Muhami Matters. For our audience, a massive thanks to Wendy Kier for joining us and sharing such a practical perspective on AI in general, but the different uses for it and the dangers as well, and what we need to have a perspective, I guess, a practical perspective on AI, be pragmatic about how we use it, and ensure it results in maximum productivity. And one way you can do that is a role of well-structured agents for professional work. So, for those professional and services business out there that may be turning expertise into repeatable processes, building focused agents, or simply creating better systems for repetitive tasks that take up too much time, get in touch with Wendy and from her wendykier.com, and Empowered AI Agents is the name of those many agents. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with your network. For more insights and support, visit muhami.ae or connect with me at CJA Consulting. I'm Chris Adams. Until next time, stay informed and stay empowered. Thank you for joining us on Muhami Matters. If you found today's episode valuable, subscribe and connect with me to stay updated. Join me again soon as we continue to bring you credible insights, practical strategies, and trusted advice to empower your professional journey. I'm Chris Adams. Until next time, stay informed and stay empowered.